Outside Old Trafford stands a bronze tribute to the foundation of Manchester United. 3 figures look out over the stadium they helped build: Denis Law, George Best, and standing shoulder to shoulder with them, Bobby Charlton. This timeline tracks Manchester United and England's all-time scoring records. For more than 4 decades, Charlton sat alone at the very top. He scored 249 goals for his club and 49 for his country, records that held firm until Wayne finally surpassed them. On the pitch, Charlton maintained a strict personal code that defined his reputation as much as his scoring. He possessed immense stamina and a lethal shot with either foot, yet he was known for a distinct modesty, famously refusing to argue with referees or opponents. That quiet endurance was rooted in a specific moment of trauma. To understand his modern stature, you have to look back to a freezing afternoon in 1958, when a 20-year-old Charlton narrowly escaped a disaster that erased the rest of his world. On February 6th, the Manchester United squad was returning home from a European Cup match in Yugoslavia, stopping to refuel in Germany at Munich Riem Airport. The weather was worsening. Snow was settling heavily on the runway. After 2 aborted takeoffs, the passengers reboarded the aircraft for a 3rd attempt. The plane failed to gain enough altitude, clipped a fence, and crashed into a nearby house. The fuselage was torn in half. Charlton was thrown from the cabin, still strapped to his seat. Teammate Harry Gregg escaped the wreckage, searched for survivors, and dragged him away. The crash claimed 23 lives. 8 Manchester United players were killed, including the 21-year-old superstar Duncan Edwards. In a matter of seconds, the Busby Babes, the most talented generation in the history of the English game, had been effectively wiped out. Charlton survived with minor physical injuries, but he returned to an empty locker room. As the club's youngest senior survivor, he faced a singular burden: carrying the memory of his decimated team back to the top of the sport. Just 8 days after the crash, Charlton returned to the coal mining town of Ashington. He spent his recovery walking the industrial streets of his youth, eventually finding the will to play the game again during casual kickabouts with local teenagers in the neighborhood parks. When he returned to Old Trafford, the atmosphere had shifted. Every time he put on the shirt, he was the physical link to the teammates who were gone. He was no longer a prospect. He was now the psychological anchor for a club trying to find its identity in the wake of tragedy. To carry that weight, Charlton evolved his game. He started as a traditional outside left winger, but eventually migrated inward to the central midfield. This number 10 role allowed him to dictate the tempo and control the movement of the entire team. In this new role, he weaponized his legendary stamina to cover the entire pitch. He developed a 360-degree shooting radius, utilizing a powerful, accurate strike with either foot that allowed him to score from distances most players wouldn't attempt. This evolution allowed Charlton to play for more than himself. By becoming the team's engine and its primary creator, he was fulfilling the sporting potential of the entire generation that had been lost at Munich. His tactical versatility made him the centerpiece of the national team. When Alf Ramsey took over as England manager, he built his 1966 World Cup squad around Charlton's unique talents, utilizing him as the team's linchpin. During the 1966 final at Wembley, Charlton was tasked with neutralizing West Germany's young star, Franz Beckenbauer. The two spent the match effectively marking each other out of the game, a tactical stalemate that allowed England to find openings elsewhere. England won 4-2, securing their only World Cup title. Charlton's performance throughout the tournament earned him the Ballon d'Or that year, officially recognizing him as the best player on the planet. 2 years later, the arc of his club career reached public climax. It was 1968, exactly a decade after Munich. Manager Matt Busby, who had also survived the crash, had spent those 10 years rebuilding Manchester United for one specific purpose: winning the European Cup. In the final against Benfica, Captain Charlton scored twice to lead United to a 4-1 victory. As he lifted the trophy, Manchester United became the first English club to ever win the competition. Winning in 1968 closed a 10-year circle. For Busby and Charlton, the European Cup was the final, tangible proof that the institution had successfully outlived the tragedy of its past. Charlton's influence on Manchester United continued long after his final match. He joined the board of directors in 1984, serving for nearly 40 years as the permanent link between the club's history and its modern global era. His legacy was defined by his work off the pitch as well. He received a knighthood in 1994 and used his international profile to launch a charitable foundation dedicated to landmine clearance in former conflict zones. In 2016, the club provided the final seal on his legacy by renaming the South Stand at Old Trafford in his honor, ensuring his name would remain a permanent part of the stadium's architecture. Bobby Charlton did more than merely endure the wreckage at Munich. He spent the next 60 years building a replacement for everything that was lost. He took the memory of a decimated team and used it to construct Manchester United's modern foundation. He proved that, in the right hands, survival can be a creative act.